You asked this 21 question. Most of them are about the Chiefs. What's up? This is Kent Swanson here with my buddy Maddie Lane. This is where the answer the questions for all the subscribers that ask wonderful questions. Maddie, what's up?
You know, I'm here for the people. The people want questions. The people want answers. The people have questions. They want answers. We're here to provide them. Let's do that. This is a very business-like day for 21 questions. We're in, we're out. You guys are getting the answers that you deserve.
Yeah, I'm excited about this, and hopefully, we kind of had some tech issues last week, but I think we'll be okay this week.
I wasn't here. That's why.
That's why, very obviously. But hey, just reminder, KCSN, we've got a lot of live coverage next week as well with all of our draft coverage. I think we're live Monday through Saturday at some point in the day. So make sure you're checking all that out. You can buy the KCSN draft guide too. There's a link down there in the description as well. If you're listening to audio or you're watching the video, make sure you take advantage of that because you got a week left to get ready for the NFL draft. Let's go ahead and jump right into these questions. Connor DC, any players that you haven't really had time to talk about that you love? How high would you be willing to draft said player? Ooh, it's an interesting start here, Maddie.
Okay. I was going to save this for the draft pod this week, but since it's a question, I'll put it here. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver out of Kentucky. I feel like I said I have liked him, but I haven't talked about him as much as I like him. I would take him at 62. That's how much I love Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's a fantastic player. Talk about a guy that's going to generate a ton of yards after the catch, and it's not just the athletic profile. He just gets it. He understands where and how to run after the catch. And you want me to connect some dots? Peeling back the curtain, I picked him we always do the draft for the KC draft guide, where we try to see who's going to guess who picks players the Chiefs take. My last pick was Wan'Dale Robinson, but here's my thought. We know the Chiefs tried to get Liam Cohen. We know the Chiefs really liked that offense. Liam Cohen's offense was very much centered around one player. His name, Wan'Dale Robinson. We also may know that the Chiefs kind of like some players out of Kentucky. So there's some reasons why I think the Chiefs might actually take him, but I do also love Wan'Dale Robinson. His ability to just drop in and be a replacement for the way McCole Hardman's been used. It seems almost perfect the way he's been used at least through 3 years.
All right, Gooby35 asks, if you could have an entire team of one player from this year's draft, what player would it be and why? It would be 22 Jordan Davises. I don't even have to think because it's a very visceral response because, I mean, he's as athletic. I mean, if you look at his relative athletic score as a tight end, he's like a very high quality athlete at tight end. So, you've got some problems there all over the field, and this is still a big man's game. I think Jordan Davis is the correct answer. I don't know. You got any, Maddie?
Troy Anderson would be an intriguing one. He's also a freak athlete. I think that he gives you a little bit more when guys do have to eventually work backwards. That is part of football, is having to backpedal. But I mean, the correct answer was Jordan Davis. I mean, that's the right answer.
That's right. But you're right.
Troy Anderson's bring a little bit more speed, a little bit more agility. I think we would play the space game.
Mike Denny asks, are we getting a Discord only pod ranking of the mock draft results?
Okay. Are we getting, what are we looking at? A Discord only pod ranking of the
mock draft results. The Discord, and just I'll give you a second to gather your thoughts. The Discord for the KC Sports Network Discord did a mock draft. It was incredible.
Yes, they did.
Someone photoshopped Matt's face onto Mel Kiper's body. I was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. So whoever drafted me wins, I think. But I'll
decide that because I played the role of Matty Kiper the second. I graded every pick from 1 to I think 111 or something. Each pick got its own grade. I'm just going to grade everybody's overall draft hauls. I will do that sometime before I get to Kansas City Thursday. I don't know if there will be a podcast, but I will find a way to get you guys your full grades and my comments on them. If we have time, we might have some time to kill one day while we're hanging out in Kansas City in person. And I might make Kent and Craig give their vote for who had the best draft haul as well.
Andy Nagel asked, the player you love that is being ignored by everybody else. I mean, you kind of gave one with Wan'Dale. Let me try to come up with one real quick. I really we don't really talk about the Washington corners a lot on here.
True.
We haven't spent a lot of time talking about them, and I know some of the measurables actually probably make them a little bit questionable, but I like both of them. I watched a little bit of them. again. I watched both of them again last night a little bit, and like especially Trent McDuffie. I think I like Trent McDuffie more than I like Kyler Gordon, but like Trent McDuffie's kind of I don't want to, he doesn't have entire Bayron Murphy vibes, but there's he's a smart football player, and I really appreciate that about him. I like his instincts. I really enjoyed watching him play. Matt K, player with the biggest disagreement between the KC Sports Network guys. There's big gaps on Tariq Woolen.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's the biggest. I don't think Tariq Woolen's the biggest gap overall. Like, there's some other guys, like a Tyler Smith, an offensive tackle out of Tulsa, is a big difference. There's some in there, but I think for Kent and I especially, the biggest one is probably Tariq Woolen. And it's funny because when we talk about him, we see generally the same stuff. There's a slight disagreement to the level at which he sees, or like we both don't think he has great ability to identify routes, and that's just not a strength of his game yet. I think Kent thinks he's a little bit better than I do, but overall, like our strengths and weaknesses are the same. It's just a matter of how we value them and the way it kind of played out. So like between us two here, I think Tariq Woolen is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, I just like I've seen him ID some routes. It's just that I feel like there's definitely like holes in it. It's like just maybe he hasn't seen enough of those concepts, but like he definitely like I think he's we talked about like Willie Gay seeing something twice. Like I think Tariq Woolen has a little bit of that. If he sees something twice, he's a little bit better the second time around. I know like there's been some discussion about his hip tightness, and I don't disagree, but also Jamel Dean. So there's been some guys that have had success doing that without that. Nick Deal, Texans pick at 13 is apparently gathering interest from other teams. Is there anyone you would be willing to move, or anyone that you would be willing to move that high for who could realistically fall? I love this question. What do you got, Matt?
The only player that I would trade 2 top 50 picks for, so that would be 29, 30, and 50. The only player that I would move 2 of those 3 picks for is Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end of Oregon. If he falls to 9, I would just trade up to 9. I wouldn't let him go any farther. I would just try to trade up with Seattle at 9, or, before the Jets again, unless they took a defensive end at 10. Like, I would go up even farther than 13 for him. Outside of him, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody else I'd go that far for. I wouldn't be upset if they did it for Derek Stingley. I wouldn't be upset, but I'm also not going to advocate for that move either. I also don't think that Thibodeau or Stingley will be there at pick 13.
All right, Andy Nagel, what does an A draft grade look like for KC? Not necessarily specific players, but rather type, position, contribution of players drafted. So, like, I think if you're mapping out a grade for the draft, and this is gonna sound wild, and Maddie probably is gonna agree with me when I say this, an A grade for the Chiefs, George Karlaftis falls to the Chiefs at 29. It somehow is probably like the best case scenario for this football team down there, because that's like that's a edge rusher with some promise, with some ability, young, a linear athletic profile, some production, obviously some warts, and you'd like he's a little bit too Janish to his Tarzan at times, but I would say that's probably the best scenario for the Chiefs is Karlaftis to
Can
fall.
I build on that?
Yeah, go.
The Chiefs also ignore the potential medical concerns with Andrew Booth Jr.,
Yeah.
who might fall there too. So you get those 2 guys at 29 and 30 at the end of the first round. So Karlaftis, I think, gives you a little bit of a safety net. He's going to be fine at the very least in the NFL. Like, he is going to be fine. Andrew Booth Jr. is the guy that you can see a very clear path to him being the best corner, or one of the best corners in this class. So like, you can see the path to drafting a Pro Bowl corner, getting at minimum a fine defensive end with your first 2 picks. And then, since it's a strong wide receiver class, take your pick of, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, or George Pickens.
I'll say it's George Pickens. George Pickens really does fall to 50.
Yeah. And there you go. Like, you could screw around for the rest of the draft, and you probably have an A because you have the elite talent on one end. You got some safety nets on the other. Like, that's everything you could possibly want from the start of a draft.
I will be levitating at Kingdom Bar and Grill if the Chiefs by the end of the 50th pick have those 3 players. I will be beside myself. That is just, it's not going to happen. Colpy02, what is the ceiling for John Mechie III? Is he wide receiver 2, elite slot, higher? That's funny because this is the exact conversation that we've also had over here as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I really like John Mechie a lot. I think he can be a very solid wide receiver too. I know there's we've had debates. I don't know if we've had him on air about what tier to kind of classify him as. Do we do this on air? I can't remember.
I don't think so. Here's the thing for Mechie for me. I think he's somewhere between good, like a high-end wide receiver 2 and an elite slot. Like it's hard to put him in there because one is an elite slot, I guess. I don't think he's going to be an elite slot because I think an elite slot receiver can push to be a wide receiver 1 or is definitely a high tier, wide receiver 2. I think that's just out of his grasp. I would be surprised if you came out and John Mechie was, I always use Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, during his biggest stretch is kind of my reference point for a high-end wide receiver 2. I don't think that that might be Mechie's absolute highest ceiling. The odds of you ever hitting the peak of your ceiling in the NFL are usually pretty rare, especially for guys that aren't rare athletes. So like that's about what I'd say. I think he ends up as a middle of the pack wide receiver 2, which is very helpful for a team. I just don't know if there's a ton of upside to justify also taking a guy coming off of injury, particularly early.
I think we had a conversation centered around if John Mechie was the best receiver that the Chiefs kind of walk away from the draft with.
Yeah.
I probably feel okay, but I agree that the ceiling is probably not remotely there. J Smith 149 asks, what is the consensus on Jeudy? Lack of stats from a quarterback situation or not as good as advertised coming out of college? Well, boy, how long you got? I
the latter. I'll make my answer short. It's the latter. He was never as good as people thought coming out of college because this is a little bit of the Garrett Wilson thing. He throws a lot of fluff into his route stems that make it look better than it actually is. And this is one of the concerns of Garrett Wilson. If you don't clean it up, you can look as aesthetic as you want making a break. If you come out of if the whole break's slow, it's not going to matter at the NFL level if there's too much movement. It's like he's a good player. Just I don't know if he was ever as good as people thought he was going to be.
I'll also throw injury has been a part of his story so far in the NFL. Quarterback situation is abysmal. Drops. He has some issues with his consistency with his hands. So there's a lot of that to it. And I mean, yeah, you're probably right, Maddie. Like he's probably not as good of a player as some thought. Fish asks, you're Brett Veach and you've decided to go with the strategy of having a down year in 2022 after trading Tyreek Hill in the hopes that you can build for success the next 3 years. How would you go about maximizing success in years 2023 through 2025? Well, okay, here's the thing. Like the Chiefs are not going to be bad regardless of what they do. Like they would have to sell off assets in order to be bad this year. Like I think this version of the team can still have a lot of success because the floor is extremely high for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We are all looking at this thing in the context of Super Bowls. So I don't think they can be bad enough that the draft capital just all of a sudden drastically changed unless they're selling off a bunch of assets, unless you're trading Chris Jones this year and you're, making some other decisions. I don't think it's possible for them to be really bad. Like a down year for them is still in the back half of the first round. So, I mean, you could tell me like, I mean, just sitting this year out a little bit with regard to if they do sit this year out and they don't really go out and make a big swing at any position, they've set themselves up extremely well for the future because they didn't restructure Mahomes' contract. They're going to have a lot of capital next year and they can get more with the Mahomes restructure next year. And they've got a lot of picks to potentially develop and work with this year. It might be some growing pains at time this year, but by 2023, yeah, like this team could have a lot of high quality, the next wave. And maybe Brett Veach finally has a blue, like I guess Creed Humphrey's his first blue chip. Well, it took him until last year. I know you want to argue Trey Smith. Hey, everything from the DMs just keeps popping up today, Maddie. Do you have anything to add?
No, not really. I mean, I think if you want to completely punt on this year of just like adding more to it, trade, half of your valuable picks, go up and get one player, go up and get Kayvon Thibodeau in the top 10, and then try to use any other picks you can to trade for assets next year under the assumption that Chris Jones will give you assets. Like just load up for draft picks for next year. I just don't think that you can only do that. Go get one blue chip player from this draft. I don't care about anything else. If that's your goal, if your goal is to just improve minimally this year so you can pack it all the next year, trade up for one guy this year, use the other capital to try to pick up more draft capital next year, pair it with the trading of Chris Jones next offseason. Now, all of a sudden, maybe you can get 2 top 15 round 1 picks next year. And then that's where you're kind of setting up for 2023 and 2024.
I wouldn't subscribe to this plan. Zach Eisen What is your most unpopular draft take? Well, Garrett Wilson is like he is sitting outside the top 50 in the KCSN draft guide, and I don't really have an issue with that. Do you have any unpopular draft takes that you?
Garrett Wilson's climbing Maddie's wide receiver draft board. I put my horizontal board into the KCSN Discord today, and Garrett Wilson has climbed himself up into wide receiver 4 range. So he's climbed up for me since then. Unpopular. Okay. Kyle Hamilton isn't that good. That's my unpopular draft take. People are still paralyzed from Isaiah Simmons and all these other hybrids in the Notre Dame guy last year. Like, everybody's paralyzed by these safety size dudes that they think can do a lot of stuff, but don't do one thing particularly great. I think Kyle Hamilton's a good player. I think he deserves to go in round 1. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not the best safety from this draft class.
Okay. Nick Deal asks, who are the best day 3 wide receivers to look out for in terms of their ceiling? So we're going specifically with ceiling. That is, well, let's see here. I don't think Jalen Tolbert is going to be a day 3 guy. He's got, I think, a pretty high ceiling. Danny Gray, for his speed's probably an interesting day 3 guy with a high ceiling because he does have a trump card. You can say I think Bo Melton's got a very intriguing skill set that could be developed if he's in a better situation where his quarterback's not just leaving him out to dry. So there's a few guys there. Do you have anybody off the top of your head, Maddie?
Romeo Doubs out of Nevada, I think, is a interesting height, weight, speed guy that shows the ability to catch stuff vertically. And if you're going to talk about upside, give me the guy that's the biggest, the fastest, and understands how to catch the deep ball. He's got some drop issues. He's got some route running that would have to be fixed. But there's been enough there that I think you could make the case that he could do more going forward. And then obviously this was like Isaiah Weston out of Northern Iowa, freak athlete. I think
he's pretty old though.
He's still a super freak athlete.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe he can turn into Byron Pringle. Oh, okay.
Everybody in this class is old though, so let's.
Not everybody. It is not everybody. There are some 20. There's some 20-years. George Karlaftis will be 21 or will be 20, I believe, on draft.
Too bad he moves like he's 33.
Well, he's still got time to figure it out. Oh yeah, no, he did just turn 21. Never mind. Happy birthday, April 3rd to George Karlaftis. So, Leighton, why? Ken, are you looking forward to your upcoming QB battle with Jalen Hurts this season? Look, I'm just thrilled to be part of the quarterback factory that is the Philadelphia Eagles. It's an honor to be selected. And you know what? I'm just going to try to go in and put in the work and focus on getting better every single day. And we'll see what happens. I've got some optimism. I got to figure out my back spasm problem first. I got a pinched nerve. It's killing me right now. But, once we get that, smooth sailing. Casey from KC, is there a case to be made for drafting a right tackle early to compete to complete an all-world offensive line that no one can match?
I won't make the case for it, but I wouldn't be upset if the Chiefs went out and drafted, Tyler Smith in round 1. If they came out and drafted Abraham Lucas at pick 50 is a little early, but they got him at pick 62. I wouldn't be upset. I'm just not going to be the one to sit here and say they should do that. I think it's going to be hard to get excess value at the tackle position because everybody always needs tackles. That's the only way I see the Chiefs going for it. I'm also a believer that you can have a very clear weak spot, at least one, if not 2 on an offensive line, and it can still be elite like that. You don't need 5 great players to have a great offensive line. Usually you want to hide that weak player on the interior. The Chiefs have invested a lot in the interior, so they're trying to hide that weak spot at right tackle, but it is what it is. Like I said, won't be mad if they go this route. I would not advocate for it.
Let's say they complete that A+ draft that we were talking about earlier with Abraham Lucas at pick 62.
But you could do whatever. You could draft only offensive tackles from pick 50 on if that's the way you started the draft, and I wouldn't care. Now, I love Abraham Lucas. I think pick 62, that's a good spot for him. So, you're just building on this A+ draft, but absolutely going forward if that's the case. So, I would not be upset with that at all.
I think Abraham Lucas goes before pick 62.
I would agree. So is Daniel Jeremiah.
There you go.
Daniel Jeremiah has him as an early round 2, knocking on round 1 door.
Okay. Knocking on round 1.
Yeah.
Good for him. That's good for him. All right, Will Yoder, with a running back class that seemingly lacks a top end athletic talent, how would you guys tier some of the guys in pass protection? Any later guys that you might see the field in a couple years because their pass pro might give them some third down opportunities? Yeah, let me go. I mean, Kyron Williams is a very, very good pass protector, and he's kind of a smaller guy, and he tested horrendously. But part of the reason he still got a higher grade in the KCSN draft guide and he's ranked a lot higher than he will go in the draft is because he's a very, very quality pass protector. Damian Pierce, capable pass protector. Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State. A lot of promise and ability as a pass protector. There's some guys that I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Abram Smith and Treston Ebner, both the Baylor kids. I really like as, guys that can be quality pass protectors as well. So there's some off the top of my head. I'm trying to think.
Pacheco out of
Yep.
Rutgers lives to block. So
there's some good pass protectors down at the bottom. And the day 3 guys has some guys that have some chops and some ability as pass protectors. So like that, there's some guys. I think the Chiefs are bringing Darrell Williams back, if I'm being honest. I remember there was these tweets about how Darrell Williams was going to command a decent contract, and now we're sitting here and the Chiefs are going to have a bunch of guys sign after the draft and not count towards the compensatory formula just to spite the Chiefs. I think it's what Tyrann Mathieu's doing, not really, but part of me thinks he might be actually doing that. Casey from KC, what's been your favorite thing about the members fan draft? It's Mel Kiper. It's Matty Kiper. It's not even close for me, and being drafted. I mean, these were highlights of my life.
For me, I think it's just like how crazy everybody went with it. Like I volunteered to grade every pick because I thought like we were maybe going to get 10 to trickle in a day. Usually things like this kind of peter out after the first round. Like everyone's excited, but then after your first 32 picks, it slows to a crawl. I thought I'd easily stay on top of it. Like if I wasn't sitting at my computer, like 30 picks would go by that I would have to go grade at once. Like just the interaction has been great. And I think that is the top. I'm glad that you guys were able to get all the way through it. It looks like everybody had a lot of fun. So that I think that's the best part.
Hobo Joe 93. How many Hall of Famers has Brett Veach drafted so far? 0. 0. And his first 3 drafts are not going to sit well or look particularly pretty. I think this last one has a promise to be really good. And it better be closer to last year than it was the previous 3 years when it comes to picks. For 2022 because this team really needs it. Do you have anything to add, Maddie? Okay. Bones Jackson asks who are the top 10 players in this draft that are Chiefs specific only. So all 4 edges.
Ooh, Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, Jermaine Johnson, Travon Walker, Derek Stingley, Andrew Booth Jr.,
Sauce Gardner. Jameson Williams,
George Pickens, Drake London. You can pick whatever receivers you want, but there's your 10, right? It's your edges, your corners, and then whatever 3 receivers you kind of want to round that out with. I think, I think that was actually pretty simple.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. If you could sit in the Chiefs war room for one day in this year's draft, are you picking Thursday, Friday, or Saturday? Woo! I like this one. What are you going, Maddie?
So they actually asked this. I was on Kingdom Cast this past weekend, and they asked me that over there. Love those guys. Support them too. They asked me this question, and I get it. Logically, the correct answer is 100% Friday. Friday's the right answer. Day 2 is the right answer. You get the most stuff, probably a little bit more laid back. You're going to be there a little bit longer, so you're like in there. Like that's the clear answer. However, something about being there for day 1. It's just there's something about it, something about being there during prime time. I know both nights are prime time, but like there's just more attention, there's more detail. Guys are going to be buttoned up. I think you're going to see people like at their absolute best and worst at the same time. There is some kind of appeal about Thursday that I think pulls me in, even though I know Friday's a logical answer. You could throw Saturday out. Nobody's picking Saturday. Terrible decision.
I think on its face, yeah, we would. I would have said Friday as well. But the more I think about Thursday, you are getting to watch the Chiefs round 1 plans unfold and understand probably what their round 1 plans are or aren't, like as they're happening. Every pick is happening. All of their contingencies. they're hoping Kayvon Thibodeau falls to 6 because they have a deal in place with the Giants for, like just all this, like every single pick would be excruciating. And I know you're not getting as many picks, although you're getting 2. You're still getting to see like the top end of their plan unfold or how close they are to certain moves. Oh,
Well, and I feel like on Friday, day 2, things are happening quicker, right? So like there's going to be a
yeah.
little bit more delegation of this is the decision. You make this choice. I make this choice. This like it's going to be a lot more procedural, I think, on Friday because it just has to be. Whereas on Thursday, you might get a lot more back and forth. You got a lot of time between picks. Oh, this plan's now ruined. Let's talk it out now. So like I just kind of feel like I think there's an appeal to Thursday that doesn't immediately jump out that's there.
Okay, Steve Gray, if you could take one move off the table for Veach during the draft, what would it be? Ooh, trading for James Bradbury with earlier than a 7th round pick. No, I honestly, if the Giants eat a bunch of that contract, I can live with him being on the team. I don't know. Well, you got any other ones?
Devontae Wyatt. I don't want the Chiefs to draft Devontae Wyatt in round 1. There's the off-field stuff that seems like there's a little bit more there cooking than maybe meets the eye. I think he's I don't think he's ever been dominant on the field at Georgia. I think he's always been at best the 3rd or 4th best defensive lineman on the field at once. Devontae Wyatt, not for me. No chance, no way. Get that out of here.
I think trading up super high for a wide receiver would be really annoying too. I think I'd take that off the table. If you're trading up, it's got to be an edge. So I think I'd take away drafting a wide receiver in a trade up, like a big one, 29 and 50. I don't think I would want to do that. No chicken tonight. Bold predictions for the draft. Mine is that Veach trades into the top 10. I'm gonna say, and this sucks, and this isn't a Chiefs one, but no, and it does suck for the Chiefs still. No quarterback goes in the top 10. I don't think any quarterbacks go in the top 10, and that really puts a damper on the Chiefs' ability to maneuver and move up because I think they need value to fall with a couple quarterbacks and the run on quarterback starting early. I don't think any go in the top 10. They may not even I think the run on quarterback starts in the teens. Either the Saints drafting one or someone trading up to get ahead of the Saints and the Steelers. But I think the quarterback run doesn't start until outside the top 10.
Desmond Ridder QB1 storyline continues. Desmond Ridder's the first quarterback off the board, whether it's to the Seahawks at 9 or the Saints with whatever their first pick is.
16.
16.
I think
one
it's
of those
16.
two spots is going to be Desmond Ridder, and that's going to be QB1. Yep.
Interesting. Casey from KC, last one. Are the Chiefs secretly thinking Josh Gordon is their diamond in the rough this year?
Nope.
No. That is going to do it for 21 questions. Thank you all so much for all of your wonderful questions, for supporting KC Sports Network. There's some big announcements coming about the KCSN Substack, all that good stuff. You need to check them out. Make sure you're checking out all of our social media. Maybe buy the KCSN Draft Guide if you're feeling like it. Links in the description. Thank you guys so much, and we will catch you later.